Welcome back to the Big Rant Show, the real home of progressives. Now, today we're going to be doing things a little different. I got quite a bit of a longer show for you today. We're going to cover a number of topics, and so let's get right into it here at the Big Rant Show. Now, first off, in 5 days, the government will shut down unless a deal is brokered between the House and the Senate in the U.S. Congress. Now, the fact is, the Republican Party has basically neglected their duties. In the House, they are only bowing to the far right of the chamber. They have no reason to do this. They have more than enough people to pass a budget, or at least a continuing resolution. These are actually completely self-inflicted wounds. Last week, Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House, a Republican, tried to push through just a funding bill for the Pentagon. And the MAGA wing of the party said no. And due to the massive cuts that were made to this budget, and things that actually would harm troops and stuff like that, Democrats weren't going to sign on to it. So when the very few that make up the MAGA caucus decided they weren't going to do it, our troops were put out to dry by the American GOP. Now, what could come up? What could happen to you or me when it comes to this particular shutdown? Initially, nothing. If you get government assistance, most of that will function at least through October. Your housing vouchers, your Section 8 living arrangements, food stamps. But here comes the problem. If you are a single mother that relies on WIC to help take care of your child and yourself, those funds are already running short. Those funds are running short before we hit the end of this fiscal year. So that's going to create a problem and possibly dwindle the amount of support you can get through WIC starting October 1. That's not guaranteed, but starting October 1 is when they'll have to start taking, drastic measures to make funding work. Joe Biden had already asked for a $1.4 billion increase in WIC funding to get it through the year. And the Republicans said no. Now, over time, depending on how long the shutdown lasts, if the shutdown occurs, you could see things like food stamps be cut because we're not going to have the funding to pay out everybody. Medicare, Medicaid, those things could start to see problems by the end of October, into November, if it drags out that long. Now, the fact is, people like government workers who are going to get furloughed, they don't get paid. Now, when the whole thing is over, if they had to work during that time unpaid, they'll get back pay. But if they were furloughed and never had to work, they don't get a paycheck until the government shutdown is over. Does that seem fair to you? Especially when you know that Congress still gets paid? I have a few ideas about this, and so do two senators. First off, my thing is, if the government shuts down, Congress doesn't get paid. Period. If the government ever shuts down, Congress should lose all pay for the remainder of the session. Period. I don't mean they don't get paid during the shutdown. I mean they don't get paid for the rest of their time for that Congress. Period. Plain and simple. Now that's just one of my many ideas here, right? Require them to not be able to go home for holidays, weekends, or anything until a government budget is produced. Now, we have two senators that are working on a deal or an idea here. Senator Kaine and Senator Beyer. Kaine is, I believe, from Virginia, and then you got Representative Don Beyer from Virginia as well. Um, they've introduced what they call the End Shutdowns Act. It's legislation to prevent government shutdown and the senseless pain they inflict on federal employees, government contractors, and millions of Americans who rely on government services. What would happen under this act if it were to pass is there's a few things that would happen. One, if a budget is not agreed upon or a continuing resolution is not agreed upon by the end of the fiscal year and the start of the next fiscal year, there would not be a shutdown. What would happen would be there would be an automatic continuing resolution maintaining the spending levels for the previous year until a budget could be worked out. That's one of the many things it would do, right? Let's see if I can find more around here. Okay. In an effort to take away that option, the option of using shutdowns as a negotiating tactic, to take that away, this bill would initiate an automatic continuing resolution on October 1 if no appropriation bill is passed by that date. They would also stop the Senate from moving forward with any other legislation outside of emergency scenarios until Congress had reached a long-term deal. Now, those two are onto something. I do believe they need to go a step further and say that Congress doesn't get paid, at least during the shutdown. I also believe they need to make sure and put in there that you don't get to go home as a congressman, senator, House member, whatever, during a government shutdown. I think that would put a big end to it, right? And make there be some teeth to that. Say if you go home during a government shutdown, you lose your seat. And it automatically would institute a new election for your seat. This is not being done because of anything the Democrats have done or you or I have done. This is being done because of self-inflicted wounds of Kevin McCarthy. If you remember, they held like 17 votes to get him that seat as Speaker. And the concessions he gave to the far-right MAGA contingent has come to roost already. That is why you are seeing a possible government shutdown in the next 5 days. And it's more and more likely by the growing hour that a government shutdown will happen at midnight Saturday. So, hopefully this gets resolved before then, but it's not looking good. Now on to news from Florida. As you see here, you got a squad car in the back. You got a picture here of a kid getting out of a car. Well, this is a very interesting story that was a friend of mine and I. We had some laughs over, but also we're very glad that they were safe. Now these kids stole their mother's car and drove 200 miles away in her car. A 10-year-old boy and his 11-year-old sister, got into their mother's car and just drove away. The kids had been reported missing, the car had been reported stolen, and the police came across it not realizing a 10-year-old was driving the car. Now, after 200 miles, it's really amazing that they didn't kill themselves or anybody else, didn't harm themselves or anybody else. The mother got up there nearly 3 hours away and decided not to press charges on her kids. I'm sure that makes sense, right? You don't want to press charges on your kid. But I got a feeling those kids may have wished they had gone to jail instead of going home. At least I know what would have happened if I had tried to steal my mother's car and drive some 200 miles away. Not only leaving her panicked about her trying to find her car, but also trying to figure out where her kids are. I couldn't imagine that. You know, it's amazing though. These kids got that far away and no one found them before then. There wasn't a lot of information given about the kids because they're minors, of course, and there wasn't a lot said about the mother in the article that I read. But I do find it absolutely crazy that kids did this for the reason they did it. Because apparently they had done something wrong and the mother had taken away their electronic devices because they weren't using them properly, according to the article I read. I'm just glad nobody was hurt and that they were safely returned to the parent who got their car back pretty much undamaged. This could have gone a lot worse because, the police didn't know what they were doing. They just knew they had a stolen car. They didn't know who was driving it at first. All they knew was there was a car that had been stolen and that it had an assailant driving it. Hopefully the mother's able to get control of these kids and help them learn to not do these kind of things, right? Because there's a right way to deal with being frustrated and there's a wrong way. Stealing your mother's car, driving 200 miles away, not necessarily the best thing to do. But I can report that they're safe at home and there's going to be no criminal, cases, and they're not going to bring a criminal case against minors who committed a traffic offense. Apparently, they don't in Florida. They're not even going to charge them with anything, from the state point of view because they don't charge anybody under the age, you know, they don't charge minors like under the age of 13 or something um, with misdemeanors over criminal offenses on the road anyway. And since nobody wanted to press charges, the kids are free to go. I just think it's amazing, and I'm glad they're okay. Now on to the title of the video. Governor Menendez needs to resign immediately. Senator Menendez has been accused and indicted on bribery charges, conspiracy to commit, to receive bribes and things like that. In a raid of his home back in 2022, they found over $500,000 in money stuffed into the pockets of a suit jacket of his. $500,000 of envelopes full of cash. They also found thousands of dollars in gold bars or pieces of gold, that had been given to him. They also discovered that somebody had been paying his mortgage and had bought him a luxury car. Now you might think, oh, well, maybe these people are just being nice, being helpful. No. It's not that. That's not how it worked at all, apparently. According to the indictment, he had taken bribes from people to help get influence on the Foreign Relations Committee that he is the chair of, or was the chair of until he temporarily stepped away after the indictment. And he was getting, not only was he being bribed for access for Americans to get more access to this guy, right? To the senator. No. He was also getting extra access to people in the Egyptian government. I believe Senator Bob Menendez, must resign. He is not trustworthy. He cannot be trusted in the halls of Congress. He cannot be trusted on a committee that has to do with foreign relations. Democrat or not, the man must go. People like John Fetterman and Chris Murphy, governor of New Jersey. I think it's Chris, or is it? I can't remember his name. But the governor of New Jersey has called for his resignation as well. This is really bad This is bad stuff. This makes the stuff that Trump did not look as nearly as bad when it comes to the documents and stuff like that, right? And we know how bad the Trump stuff was. This stuff right here is just as bad, if not worse. Because we don't know exactly what happened with those documents down at the Mar-a-Lago estate, right? We don't know. But we do know that this guy was very possibly selling influence and allowing foreign countries to influence his chairing of the Foreign Relations Committee. If you ask me, that is a damaging thing to do that could do nothing but hurt the U.S. from our foreign relations standpoint and from a domestic standpoint. You cannot let foreign countries have control of our politicians, or else they are not going to be putting America first. They're going to be putting their pocketbook first and who they can help because they pay the most. Now, Bob Menendez has said that this is just people coming after a Hispanic sitting congressperson. No, Mr. Menendez, this is not about your race. This is not the fact that you're Hispanic. This is the fact that you're a criminal, that you are a corrupt criminal in the U.S. government, and you must resign immediately or be forced to resign by the Senate Democrats. We cannot sit here and try to prosecute Donald Trump and trying to keep him out of the White House when people like you are sitting within our party being allowed to continue. Now, I understand that there is due process, that you have a right to be presumed innocent until found guilty. I get that. But this isn't your first rodeo, is it? In the last 10 years, you've already been charged with bribery and corruption. Now, maybe you got away with it last time, but the evidence is a lot different now. The last time the evidence wasn't nearly as factual. It was very circumstance, right? Circumstantial evidence is what they had. They didn't really have a whole lot of facts. But now they have money with the fingerprints of the people you're accused of taking bribes from. Gold with fingerprints of people you were accused of taking bribes from. I believe it's in the best interest of America, the Democratic Party, and the American people that Bob Menendez steps away from his role as a senator and takes care of this case. If he is found not guilty, then Mr. Menendez can always run again, right? But I believe it is in the best interest of the American people, the best interest of our republic, for Bob Menendez to be removed from his position as a senator in the United States Senate. The man is nothing but bad news. He not only makes Democrats look bad, he makes America look bad, and he puts us in a dangerous situation with him being on the Foreign Relations Committee. Now on to this story here. This is a very sweet story and scary story for a parent, I'm sure. Here you see a little girl, right? Thea Chase is her name. She's 2 years old. Thea went missing the other day. Feared lost, they couldn't find her. They looked everywhere. There's some miscommunication between an uncle and the parent on where the girl was, and they didn't know where she was. They couldn't find her. The belief was that she had wandered off into the woods, and they were not sure. Local people and even law enforcement, they had all started doing, a search party trying to find the little girl. The assumption was that she had wandered off into the woods just behind the buildings, or behind the property, and they couldn't find her. So I'm going to read you a little bit of the story and hear from CNN. She was 2 years old. Troopers were called to a house in rural Faithorn, Michigan, around 8 p.m. on Wednesday. The toddler, Thea Chase, had wandered away from home. Brooke Chase, Thea's mother, said she had an instinct to check on her daughter, who had been playing in the yard, and learned from the toddler's uncle that he had told Thea to go inside because she didn't have any shoes on. Well, apparently, she never went inside to get her shoes. She just disappeared. It says when Chase and her brother-in-law realized Thea wasn't in the house, she said she began to yell and search for about 20 minutes before calling the girl's father and the police. The Michigan State Police immediately went to looking for the girl, and it was absolutely interesting how they found her. It says around midnight, after about 4 hours after the police had been notified, friends searching for Thea on an all-terrain vehicle came across the Chase family Rottweiler, Buddy, who started barking as he approached, according to Chase. The 2-year-old was discovered a short way off the trail, sleeping on the ground with her head resting atop Hartley, the family's English Springer Spaniel. When the ATV driver tried to get near the girl, the dog growled and wouldn't let him get the girl. But she was found with her dogs. So the little toddler, 2 years old, barefoot, ran into the woods. It was 60 degrees out. I guess because she was upset that she was told to put shoes on. And you see in the picture her with the spaniel that she was sleeping on. Not only is this a sweet story, it's got to have been terrifying for the mother and the father and family members. But this girl didn't seem like from the medical report and everything, she was fine. Everything was good with her. She was really happy, good to go. Didn't seem like anything was wrong to her. She just been out on a little adventure with her dogs. And I know, if she disappeared with her dogs, you knew she was safe, right? But like her mother said, she's got those dogs wrapped around her finger. They'll do anything for her, go anywhere she goes. But it shows you that dogs are great to have. If you have kids and you can get a good dog for them, I suggest getting a dog. If you can, especially if you can afford to feed them and take care of them and everything. But your kids can, as long as you have a good, well-behaved dog, I don't think you'll ever have a problem. And I don't think your kids will hardly ever have a problem either, at least in situations like this. It just shows you how good dogs are to humans. And I think it's absolutely amazing that Thea was found as quickly as she was, that they immediately went searching in the area they assumed that, they were pretty sure she would be. And I'm sure there may have been points where she was scared out there by herself, but she had her dogs. She was good. Now for another heartwarming story. This is Miss Thompson. Miss Thompson owns a restaurant. What's it called? I got the Facebook page pulled up here somewhere. Miss Jade's Soul Food in Middleton, Ohio. Saw a post from a local school, well, not really a local school, but one from Lebanon, Ohio, that said this. Donovan Elementary School. Tomorrow is the highly anticipated first Ice Cream Friday. We wanted to send out a few reminders to hopefully make the day go smoothly for everyone. A student must have money on their account to purchase an ice cream. If a student has a negative account balance, they will not be allowed or able to purchase an ice cream, even if they bring their $1 for said ice cream. Students are only allowed to purchase one ice cream and are not permitted to buy an ice cream for a friend. We hope to have a great first Ice Cream Friday. Well, she's owned this restaurant Miss Jade's Soul Food in Middleton, Ohio, for about 5 years. I went through her Facebook page, and about 5 years ago, she quit her job and started with a hope and a prayer, basically with 5 fryers and a 5-day permit from the city, from the health department. This woman literally, she's talked about how she had balances before for her kids. She had 6 kids, single parent, and she understood what it meant, right? Well, she couldn't do anything about it in the past, but now she has the money to help. This woman is amazing to me. I don't know what any of her political views are, but the fact that she took care of these kids. Now, what happened is she put out a post on her Facebook page of her restaurant saying, "Hey, she's gonna call the school, and she's gonna fix this. Make sure all the kids get their ice cream." She found out that the total for all the students that were short on money would have been $411 and some change. Miss Thompson here paid for all of it. She and her business made a donation to the school's treasury department to pay off all the kids' negative lunch balances so they could all have ice cream. I think that's absolutely awesome. Because I don't want to take anything away from what she did, but let's make it clear. There should be no such thing as student lunch debt. Student lunch debt should be abolished. It should not exist. Kids should just get to eat. School lunches, breakfast, lunch should both be free to all students, regardless of socioeconomic status. All kids should be able to eat breakfast and lunch at school and not incur debt. Lunch and breakfast should be free. That's bottom line right there. That's just baseline taking care of children at school. Because not only are kids required by state law to go to school, right? Not only are they required by state law in pretty much every state in the union to attend school, then you force them to pay the school to eat? No, the state should be taking care of that. Through a federal government program, this should be being taken care of. No student in America should have to pay for their lunches or their breakfast at school. First off, most of the time the lunches aren't even worth the money you're paying for them. School lunches should be provided for free to every student. Now back to Ms. Thompson here. Let me get back to her story. The only reason I haven't pronounced her first name is I can't pronounce it. And I don't want to seem rude and butcher her name. But like I said, she runs Miss Jade's Soul Food, and she paid off their debt. It happened to be at this place called Donovan Elementary School, and she paid off their ice cream debt, or their debt, so they could have ice cream. And I think that's really great. And like I said, she said she did it because, she'd been that person. She'd been that parent that couldn't get it paid. And some of the things apparently she's used that you can do to support things like this is to help other neighborhoods and communities and stuff like that. There's a website called Neighborhood Bridges, and then you can, if you wanted to help donate to that school or whatever, you could. It's really a really good thing that there are people out there that are trying to help people, and I really think more people need to do this, right? If you have the money and the ability to do so, and you can help some kids, and so we can figure out a way to make sure that all kids' lunches are free, then I think more people need to do this. Miss Thompson here, Miss Jade's Soul Food there in Middleton, Ohio. Thank you for helping those kids. I don't know you, but I just want to say thank you. And I don't know anybody that lives in that school. But I'm glad there are people like you that actually give a crap about other people. Because a lot of people that, are able to pull themselves up and make something of themselves and do something good for themselves, sometimes they forget where they come from. And I'm glad to know that you didn't. I hope your business remains successful. If you're in the Middleton, Ohio area and you happen to see this video, go buy a meal there at her store to help, support her. I believe good people need to be supported. And Miss Thompson is a good person, clearly. She at least cares enough to help children out. And that's more than I can say for a lot of other successful people. And if I was in the area, I would go for sure try her food. I believe more people need to be like this, and I'm glad that she did this for those kids. Now, like I said earlier, I don't know anything about her political views, and I don't think those are important at this point. All that matters to me is that she took time out of her day and money out of her pocket to help ensure that those kids can enjoy ice cream. Sometimes people do things that make me think humanity isn't all that bad. Anyways, thank you for watching this extended version of the Big Rant Show. I hope you've stuck around for this whole time. I know this is probably one of the longest videos I've ever put up, for just news stories. But I decided I would try something a little different, try a little bit longer format, and I hope you enjoyed it. To the few people that watched my last video over the good news, thank you for watching that. I thought it was really cool that those people did what they did to help. And I'm trying to make sure that I get at least one story like that in every episode here at the Big Rant Show. Because not only do I want to be able to push for progressive ideals and progressive values, I want to show you people that are actually living those values, that are actually donating their time, their money, and their effort to help other people. Thank you for watching.